Welcome back to Gameday Tarps podcast, episode 4. Today we have our buddy Dallas joining us to discuss the NHL offseason in full swing and more going on in the hockey world.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, boys.
Happy to have you on here. All right, let's get right into this today. We are really being gifted with some really good news this last couple weeks here. Number one, obviously Bergeron did decide to retire. What are you guys' thoughts on his career so far?
Getting 1,000 points in 1,200, almost 1,300 games. I think that's a pretty successful career in my eyes.
Just, shy of 450 goals, almost 500, just over 600 assists to round out that 1,000 points like you talked about. And, of course, the 6 Selke trophies, being the best defensive forward in the league, and probably the best defensive forward in history, in my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts here, Dally, are.
Well, for a guy who's played about 1,200 games, you can't have a better Hall of Fame career than Patrice Bergeron.
And you got a cup to your name, which a lot of players at that age might not be able to say they have. So there's some great players out there that haven't won a cup.
Well, and also, at the Olympic level, he has a couple gold medals to his resume as well. Like, he is an outstanding player, and by his fellow peers in the NHL who can vouch for him, he's just an all-around guy on and off the ice, a community guy, and he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer 100%.
Yeah, you mentioning his accolades there. He's part of the Triple Gold Club, which only has almost 30 members, I think. Guys who have won a Stanley Cup, gold medal at the Olympics, and a gold medal at the Worlds, I believe, is the triple crown on that one. So not many guys have got that accomplishment in their career.
Exactly, and even just recently, too. Well, a couple years back, the only other person that's done it most recently has been Sid the Kid himself.
That's very true. Now on to some more unfortunate news with the breaking news of Rocky Wirtz, the owner of the Chicago Blackhawks, dying at the age of 70. I know he took over the Blackhawks in 2007 following the death of his father, and I know that he actually ended up taking it over from his brother, Peter, who passed it on to him, which many were surprised about. So we just want to pay some respects to Rocky here, say, the Chicago Blackhawks wouldn't have been who they were without him being willing to be such an involved owner, and they were such a great team because of who he was and all the stories that we're going to hear over the next coming weeks of ex-players coming out and just, praising this guy and who he was to them.
Yeah, just a real cornerstone of the franchise, building that last decade of a dynasty for the Chicago Blackhawks. But the future looks bright in Chicago. they've had some recent signings, and they have the newcomer Connor Bedard just recently signed his entry-level deal of 3 years, $950,000. So, Chicago looks bright in the future.
And you imagine the incentives that kid's probably got, too?
Oh yeah, like Lululemon just recently, BioSteel, he is definitely going to have his pockets filled.
I can't imagine what Sherwood threw at him because, let's be honest, Sherwood's a dead hockey brand, and the fact that they got Connor Bedard means, one, either he thought it would be a cool experience to go with a different off-brand company, or they absolutely threw every dollar they had left in their bank account to get this guy to try and rebuild their brand.
Yeah, it's surprising to me too, because I'm pretty sure in an interview someone asked him what his favorite stick was growing up, and I'm pretty sure his answer was Bauer.
Yeah, it is very trendy, I think. A rejuvenation of a lost brand. Yes, all the kids these days are all using, CCM, Warrior. Yeah, just going with Sherwood. Definitely rejuvenating the brand again. Maybe it might become popular again in recent times after Connor Bedard's rookie year here, so we'll see.
Oh, I bet their sales have already gone through the roof, man.
Oh, it will be 100%. His jersey sales have already skyrocketed on Fanatics and local shop. He is definitely going to be a generational talent since, Connor McDavid broke into the league.
Some Joe Flurcoho should make a comeback now, eh?
Hey, 100%. I'd love to see that.
Up next, we have a major extension coming in from Carolina. They get Sebastian Aho on an 8-year, $9.75 million deal, almost $10 million. What do you guys think about this one?
Oh, I think it's an awesome signing for Carolina. He fits their system so well. He's almost a point-per-game player. He's probably just under a point-per-game player, but I think he just suits that system well.
Yeah, just coming off of last year, he played 75 games, and he got about a total of 67 points, about a 14-point drop-off from his last campaign the year before that. But yeah, there was no doubt in my mind that Carolina wasn't going to lock him down. This is a franchise player. He was definitely going to be seeing the big bags come payday in his next signing.
Yeah, and I think this sets so much of the market for next year because, he is elite. There's no question about that. There's some real franchise guys coming up in the next couple years the Matthews and stuff, like, okay, Aho just got under 10. Matthews is saying, okay, maybe he'll take a deal with Toronto, but is he going to take 10? No, because that's only $250,000 more than a Sebastian Aho. Sebastian Aho hasn't scored 60 goals. He hasn't been that kind of a guy. So it's like, okay, where's Matthews going to land? You know, they think around 13. He says he's taking less. But where does that put players like Matthews when this guy's making almost 10?
And I think that's also a benchmark for Lindholm now, looking at that, if he does decide to re-sign in Calgary. So I wonder what kind of a deal Conroy has on for him. Probably obviously not 10 mil, probably around the 9.5 mil, I would assume.
Yeah, there's definitely some older guys, though, going to be in the mix for next year's UFA tracker. We got guys like Steven Stamkos, Jakub Voracek, William Nylander is definitely going to be one of those Toronto guys that are going to be looking for a big payday. If Brad Tree Living doesn't trade him by either the deadline or even get a deal done even this year for what he wants, because they're definitely not seeing eye to eye. William Nylander and his agent and just Toronto management. So yeah, definitely going to be a big name to watch out for coming this year or even the 2024 free agency.
Well, I think even Nylander's asking 10.
10, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely looking for a big payday. And then right along the lines, you're going to have his teammate there, Austin Matthews, looking for even, if not even the same, or even if more.
Yeah, and now for this year, Toronto's an interesting case because now they've just announced Matt Murray's going on LTIR. You know, he's making them closer to the cap, apparently $2 million over still. Now, the thing is, I think you are willing to lose Nylander for nothing if it wins you a cup. Like, this Toronto team is actually looking very scary on paper when you look at their top six, you look at their depth. Their goaltending is a question mark, but you look at the rest of it, and they're a scary team, and you wonder, okay, like, do you lose Nylander for nothing in free agency, knowing you're not going to be able to afford him anyways, and you go and try and win a cup? Or do you try and get 2 to 3 assets out of him, and you try and win that way? Or, I don't know, what do you guys think that they try and do?
Well, I don't think Tree Living's going to risk that 2 years straight as a GM. You don't lose Gaudreau for nothing, and you don't lose William Nylander for nothing, I don't think. So I think he's going to be moved, if not moved, re-signed.
With Toronto just signing Ilya Samsonov, they got Joseph Woll coming in as the backup now in place of Matt Murray. You know, Matt Murray was a very good goalie when he was in his prime. You know, he's had some setbacks, very unfortunate. He's had some recent injuries. He just hasn't been in his true self and true form. But I feel like, you know what, if he comes back midway, quarterway, no matter what, in this season, I really do think that Matt Murray's going to have a big comeback. He is definitely a quality starter. He has 272 NHL games under his belt. He has 146 wins, 86 losses, 24 OT losses. Goals against average is only at .279, and save percentage all time is a .9 or .910. So, in his career playoffs, like, we've all seen him. He's won back-to-back with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, that is a feat that not a lot of goalies can say they have in their resume. He has 51 games played in the playoffs, 29 wins, 21 losses, and he has a goal against average of .218 and a save percentage of .921. I say that's pretty damn good, boys.
Speaking earlier of like young guys like Bedard, the Arizona Coyotes have signed Logan Cooley to his 3-year entry-level deal, and earlier reports I noted just a couple episodes ago was that he was not wanting to come back and he was wanting to go to college again this year, and I thought personally that he was maybe going to take this and run all the way through his eligibility and sign somewhere else, knowing Arizona might not be permanently staying in their home state and that they might be sold and moved or kept with the same ownership and moved potentially. But I thought maybe he wasn't coming back. So I don't know your guys' thoughts. I think, you know, it's a great signing for their team and what they need in their organization, and he's obviously a super skilled kid.
It's probably a lot of weight lifted off their shoulders knowing that they signed one of their top prospects, finally getting that deal done. Do I think he wants to be there? Maybe not so much with how that franchise is kind of hitting the ground.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, how many owners have been coming in over the last decade and, you know, promising, but then, you know, they can't get an arena deal. You know, now they're playing in ASU. Just city after city, the counselors are just, you know, voting no to, like, just building a new arena for them. So, you know, I inevitably think after this year is going to be a true test, and I think that, yes, they will be relocating. Well, on the topic of that, I mean, there's been some rumors that Salt Lake City has been investigating for an MLB team and an NHL team, and as well, I think a clear choice for them would be to reintroduce a hockey team in Houston, Texas. Bring back the old Houston Aeros.
I mean, I think Arizona has an exciting team to watch. It just sucks that they can't get anything done with it, arena deal-wise. It would suck to watch them go, but, I mean, at the same time, I love to watch change, so I think it'd also be cool for a little bit of a rebrand, relocation.
Yeah, I think that there's a few places, right? Atlanta seems to still be throwing their hat in the ring for some reason. They think that they can rebuild that. In their own council that's talking about it, they got Quebec City that's in the conversation. Yeah, Salt Lake City. There's Houston. There's so many places that are discussing that one NHL teams, but that just means that how good this sport is doing in America right now with how much expansion, and really all the sports. I know that they even just announced in the NBA that it's quietly noted that Vegas and Seattle have been approved as the next two teams or cities to get teams in those or in that league in the NBA. I know the MLS is expanding a season for like the last 5 years, it seems like. So, the U.S. sports world is growing. Hopefully the NHL can continue to get into more major markets and even mid-major markets and really capitalize and grow this game in places we haven't seen it before.
It is very unfortunate for a franchise like Arizona. I mean, yes, they had a good run back in the very early 2010s, but I mean, they have drafted over the last decade some highly touted prospects. I mean, you got, their number one current prospect right now, Logan Cooley, and just coming fresh off a great season with the Winnipeg Ice, you have at number 2 slot there Connor Geekie, who is eventually going to be a cornerstone of that franchise if and when he does come up to the big leagues and he stays there.
Yeah, and you got Dylan Guenther.
A big piece, of that Seattle Thunderbirds coming off, a trip to the Memorial Cup in Kamloops, British Columbia. I mean, Dylan Guenther had a remarkable season coming from the Edmonton Oil Kings franchise and going to the Seattle Thunderbirds and just lighting up the show there. I mean, yeah, and then you got, Dmitry Samashev, and you got also Daniil Butt, who is also touted prospects for the Arizona Coyotes. So I think the future's bright, but it all depends again, guys, like if they stick around to see the future bright in Arizona.
Whatever team gets them, whether they stay with Arizona or rebrand, I mean, they're getting a good team right off the bat, I think. So either way, I think it'll be good for the sport. As much as I'd like to see the sport grow, like obviously Bettman wants to see the sport grow rather than get rid of teams.
Yeah, he's definitely tried to keep that team there for a long time now. How long have we been talking about Arizona possibly relocating, It's just same song and dance year after year, right? Like, is it going to happen? But the inevitable is the inevitable. It will happen, but how long are we going to wait for that?
I don't think too much longer. Like I just mentioned, all the majors are all growing in different directions and expanding. So I think that expansion, whether it is the Coyotes moving or another team moving or teams being brought in, it's going to happen, rapidly. And this league, I think the league will get up to about 40 teams over the next 20 years before they kind of max out on their slots, and then there will be some room for teams like that are really underperforming to be, swapped out or sold and moved. So I think that's kind of where the league is heading over the next 20 years at least. It's probably to 40 franchises going on and having that in the schedule. So that would be pretty neat to see.
Yeah, and on that topic, Riley, I mean, we have all these, American teams in the league, but, there are some cities in Canada that, everyone knows, Quebec City being the major topic of discussion. If Arizona were to leave, will they go to Quebec City? But you know what? When Edmonton got their NHL franchise, they had a population of 400,000. Halifax right now, well, we've seen at the World Juniors this year how much the crowd loves their hockey. I mean, they have a great historic franchise, the Halifax Mooseheads, at the Scotiabank Centre, who bring in droves of crowds. And they right now have a population of 500,000 in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So I really think that, it's very underlooked of having potentially an NHL franchise making its way to the Canadian Maritimes. Talking about other Canadian teams in the NHL, breaking news is that Vladimir Tarasenko just signed a 1-year, $5 million contract with the Ottawa Senators. Now, I don't see this as too much of a surprise for Ottawa making a big splash like this, because they did just lose Alex DeBrincat, and they're definitely trying to bring in another, let's say a superstar to fill in that void, with the young core that they have there in Ottawa right now.
I think he brings in the experience, but I don't think he's going to put up the same point totals he maybe once had. I mean, he's an older player. I don't think he's going to have the same outcome or performance that he's once had. So I don't see it being a big deal for Ottawa or him bringing anything like in a pot. Like, I don't see big things happening with this signing, Like, it's a cool signing for sure, but I don't see it making their team much better.
And this is something that we talked about, I think it was either it must have been last episode, because we started off with the Ottawa Senators on our free agency part 2 in our episode 3, where we talked about how we heard Tarasenko might be going there because DeBrincat got moved. And we actually kind of guessed it. We said he's probably going to sign a 1-year deal for big money because now they have cap. And he's going to try and, maybe score 30 goals again and try and get a long-term contract when the cap opens up next year with someone. And he's just going to use Ottawa as like a springboard to try and get there. He's going to try and play with Stützle. He's going to try and play with Tkachuk. Whoever it is that's going to get him points at a higher rate. And hopefully he can, be in their top 6, maybe even first line, and capitalize on his own contract situation. He's basically betting on himself, but making a killing with his $5 million per year for his 1 year. So I think that this is a good signing for him, good signing for the team. Maybe he stays after this year. Maybe he goes elsewhere. Who knows with the cap? It's going to be crazy next offseason. We have no idea what's going to happen. But I think this is a good signing for both parties.
And obviously he's not too worried about in the win-now state. He's got a cup under his name already, but he's turned down contract offers from Florida and Carolina, who, if you're in a win-now mentality at the age he is, I would have signed in Florida, but maybe they weren't offering the money he wanted.
Well, both Florida and Carolina are basically up against the cap, so they probably would have had to move a smaller part to make it happen, but I think that he definitely would have had to take he wasn't getting $5 million. Maybe he was only getting 1.5 or 2 to go to a team like that, and he's just betting on himself, taking care of his family. It's a smart thing to do when you already have won a cup, been a 30-goal scorer. He's been in Rocket Richard conversations before, so it's an opportunity for him now to prove himself in his later years of his career, try and get one more big contract, a 4 or 5 year deal, lock himself in, and finish off strong.
Yeah, and in the 21-22 campaign, Vladimir Tarasenko surpassed his total of most points in a season with 82, but then just this past year that, we just had, he only racked up a total of 50 points. He had about 29 with the St. Louis Blues before being dealt to the New York Rangers, who he got 8 goals and 13 assists for just 21 points. Now, I think with the revitalization in Ottawa, he might just find some teammates that, can kindle that chemistry with, because, New York was definitely taking a gamble. I mean, they got Patrick Kane as well as Vladimir Tarasenko. Like, New York is definitely in a win-now mode. They've been in win-now for the last decade. I mean, you've seen that 2012 Stanley Cup run, and they ultimately fell short to the LA Kings. They've definitely had some tough challenges over the years. I mean, they have the Tampa Bay Lightning in the conference finals. They definitely had to make a good push a couple years in a row in the second round with the Pittsburgh Penguins. They've bested them a couple times, but Pittsburgh ultimately came out on top. And their other division rival there, the Washington Capitals, they just cannot get over this hurdle. Yes, New York has definitely drafted within the last 5 years very well. They got that generational talent they thought they'd be getting in Alexis Lafreniere, but he definitely is another piece that might be moving soon because he has just definitely not lived up to the hype of what he was supposed to be, boys.
I think for them, though, for New York, that's almost a good thing because they can't afford for Lafreniere to be good. They can't afford for Kakko to be good. If those guys were 80, 90 point scorers, being first and second overall respectively, could you imagine their cap situation with who they have now? Those guys asking $7, $8, $9 million a year just to continue to play, because they're both have been up for contract. I think Lafreniere's up this year, or well, I guess he's a RFA going into next year, but they got to figure out who exactly gets the money, and it's probably nice knowing that Lafreniere is probably only going to be getting like 3 to 5, not 7 to 10, like Aho money or something if he was in that range doing those type of things. So it's got to be good for them to know that that's kind of nice on the cap side.
And they get to keep them for depth players if they don't move them, right?
Another UFA piece here is Patrick Kane. Like, I feel that somehow, some way, management in New York is going to try to find a way to get Patrick Kane back, maybe for at least maybe 1 year. Try to get a Tarasenko range, maybe like $4 million, I'd say, but I mean, they got big guys there. Adam Fox taking a big chunk of that cap space. You got guys like Chris Kreider, and guys, Keandre Miller recently signed a big contract with them too. So, I mean, yeah, they're definitely going to have to try to move some assets and see what they can get if they want to make another decent, deep playoff push.
And word about Kane, I mean, I think he's sitting out for most of the season, either to look at how teams are doing in the season, or another part I heard was he wants to be 100% healthy with injuries not kicking him in the butt. So he wants to be healthy, and I think he's still in the I want to win another cup. So yeah, he's definitely going to wait and see and be 100% for the team he gets to sign with.
And on the note of him signing, there's still some notable UFAs out there. Obviously, Patrick Kane, number one. Tarasenko just signed, so he's no longer on our list that we've made here. But you got Matt Dumba, who reportedly has been talking to Arizona for like 2 weeks, but there's been nothing done there, so I'm not sure what's holding it up. You got Thomas Tatar, Jonathan Toews. We don't know if he's retiring or not. Zach Parise, haven't heard anything about him retiring, but he's up there in age, so he could be. Max Comtois, a younger guy who's just not found his potential. Puya Suter, Phil Kessel, another older guy who maybe, he's done. He just wants to eat hot dogs on the beach the rest of his life. Who knows? And Josh Bailey, who's been a very solid contributor and not sure where he's going to end up next because, he could be a really good depth piece for a lot of teams in this league.
Yeah, with Zach Parise you mentioned, I would definitely love personally to see him, reunite in New Jersey. They had a very good 2014 Stanley Cup run. Just a very strong core. And now with Zach Parise bringing that veteran presence back to New Jersey with such a young, exciting core to watch, I would love to see a reunite with Zach Parise in New Jersey.
Oh, for sure, that would be cool. And back to Kessel, I think after just winning the Cup, I think he's just happy with celebrating with friends and family with the Cup right now. I don't think he's too worried about getting that next contract right away. Taves, he's not getting the marketing from his agent that I'm sure he probably wants to get for teams to call him. Comtois, I heard Montreal didn't even want him, and that's, hometown kid, mainly because of his poor performance last year, which is unfortunate. I think this kid's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot to give. Under the right team, I think he can definitely find his potential.
Yeah, with Jonathan Toews, I think that he's caught, because he has that immune deficiency disease that he's dealing with, where he could just all of a sudden contract like a legit sickness for months and not come back. It's extremely hard for teams to bet on him and know what to pay him because, okay, we give him, let's say $5 million, right, per year, and then he gets, super sick for the entire year, and you put him on LTIR, and now you have $5 million in cap you can use, but it's like, now you've lost the player. So it's a weird place that teams, I don't think, know what to do with his status because no one has had this disease in the NHL before. It's something totally unheard of. The best thing was that he was, so long tenured with Chicago that he was able to have time and they gave him space and they weren't a winning team. So it was like there was no pressure on him. But now if he's wanting to win again at this point in his career, like go to a winning team, get a decent pay and like try and contribute, but then he gets sick, like it just throws everything off, and I think all parties are kind of confused about where to go with him.
And continuing on that note, we got Josh Bailey, former Windsor Spitfire. This guy is definitely a decent top 9 forward. He is gritty, he plays hard, and with the right team, I think he will fit in. Josh Bailey definitely has a few good years left in him. I think that, a young team will find him, and they just want that leadership presence in the locker room.
Yeah, and I think most of the players on this list now are going to be listed as, depth players on a Stanley Cup team. Maybe other than Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba I still see as a top 4 defenseman, which I'm sure there's probably a few teams in the league still looking at that. You said Arizona. I've heard Dallas once before. So it'll be definitely exciting to see where he ends up for sure.
All right, and some more local news now. Some pretty exciting stuff. We all know BCHL hockey left Hockey Canada, which left a massive hole in Western Canada's junior development program. About a month ago, the KIJHL applied to be the Junior A official league of Hockey Canada, and just this week they've been approved. So it's super exciting for the teams in the areas that these teams are that now have these incredible talents that are usually Division I or Division II college equivalent players that go on to great collegiate careers from Junior A and have a real chance to shine. So it's really exciting in our local area here to have this go on for us.
Yeah, for anyone who's not a local listener, we have a very touted ex-Junior B team, or league that is now Junior A under the umbrella of Hockey Canada. They partnered with the PGHL and the VIJHL, the Vancouver International Junior Hockey League, the Pacific Junior Hockey League, and now the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League. It's going to be a big step for a lot of these players. The league officials came to an interview process and they were like, we definitely need to build up this league because now we definitely have a big shoes to fill as the British Columbia Hockey League definitely left the umbrella of Hockey Canada. They want, a more immersive environment for a lot of these teams because for those who are not familiar, a lot of these teams are very, very small towns. Like we got, 100 Mile House Wranglers, the Chase Heat, Armstrong Knights, and then we got, a big up-and-coming team that's been touted for the last 2 years is the Princeton Posse. And then you got the big dogs like the Revelstoke Grizzlies who have gone to the Cyclone Taylor Cup quite a few times in recent memory. So, there's a lot of development to be made in these leagues. They definitely want to be more immersive, fun for the fans, and definitely more exciting for the players. Because for those who are not familiar, a lot of these players will be going on to college level hockey after their career is done in the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League.
And we'll have to see here the impact this does have on the now independent BCHL, or BC Hockey League, because we'll see what doors Hockey Canada offers and opens more to players coming and playing in the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League versus the BC Hockey League, because you don't know what this independent league, the BCHL, what they're going to do now and how they're going to promise development for players and how they're going to guarantee guys getting to the collegiate level in the D1 or D2 spots. And you also have this scary fact for them now is like they can't mess this up, because now already they've been replaced and they have no safety net to fall back to. Like Hockey Canada is not begging and waiting for them to come back and take their junior A spot, and they're obviously not going to kick the KIJHL out of their spot if they ask to come back. So you either stay independent or you get kicked down to junior B level hockey in British Columbia, and I don't know, what that would do to their revenues, their, just everything. Their teams would be worse. The players that they produce would be worse. It would just really damage their program as a whole, and I don't know where they actually want to go from here and what their plan is to guarantee these kids, that they're going to go farther. Like, not very many kids play in the World Junior Championship for Team Canada or Team America from the BC Hockey League, but now they can't. If they play in the BC Hockey League, they're no longer allowed to represent at the World Junior Championship, because that is, Hockey Canada or Hockey USA sanctioned event, and now they're an independent product. So it's going to be a weird thing. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just happy for the KI getting the bump. Happy for those teams that, they all voted. All their minor hockey leagues had to vote. They all had to give their approval that they were going to be bumped up. You have some teams like Kamloops who now have a Junior A and a WHL hockey team, which is just awesome to see. So we'll see how this takes off and where this goes for those type of teams.
Yeah, one last note about the BCHL is that in the first round, the Carolina Hurricanes drafted Bradley Nadeau from the Penticton Vs of the BCHL, and that was definitely a good pick, I think, by the Carolina Hurricanes, because there is a lot of good product that does come out of the BCHL. We got guys like Curtis Lazar, Travis Zajac, and then we got guys like Akita Hirose, who now have a contract with the Vancouver Canucks. Like, there's just a lot of guys that you don't know where they started, but it's a lot of good homegrown roots of this league. A very promising D1, D2 league to play in as a junior, and also, a lot of these hometowns like Salmon Arm Silverbacks, the Penticton Bees, the Prince George Spruce Kings. Like, these teams definitely produce a lot of good players that you just wouldn't know that came from. So a lot of good product does come from the BCHL.
And speaking of young product, we have some guys next year who are potentially able to win the Calder Trophy. Who are you guys' thoughts on who could take that home and who's really going to dominate as a rookie in their first year?
I'm probably going to be really biased on this one. It's probably going to be Bedard, truly. But besides Bedard, I would maybe see Simon Edvidson with Detroit stand out. Dustin Wolf is a goalie for Calgary. Maybe he might not get enough games to even be in that Calder race, but you never know. I want to see a defenseman or a goalie win it this year. I'm kind of overseeing the forwards kind of kill it.
Yeah, I mean, if Conroy does decide to call up Dustin Wolf there, I mean, he has been touted a number one goalie prospect in recent memory. Like, it is his time to shine now. I mean, is Jacob Markstrom going to be, up to the challenge again this year, and having Dan Vladar as their backup? I mean, it's time to give the young guys in Calgary time to shine. But I'm going to go for a sleeper here and go with Zach Benson. That guy has been proving, being short doesn't always mean that you can get overlooked. I mean, his skill alone is definitely showing in Buffalo camp that he is going to be him this coming season. And then definitely, again, Logan Cooley. I mean, I can definitely see if Arizona decides to call him up, he'd definitely be a good candidate. And lastly, my last one is going to be Adam Fantilli. Yeah, he dropped to Columbus. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, that was his choice. He wanted to go to Columbus. He has some Michigan teammates that are in Columbus right now.
Yeah, I think for me, my dark horse is Brant Clark in LA. Just because LA is probably, of these players, the best team that they're playing for. With the opportunity as well. Brant Clark's going to get an opportunity in LA to be a potential game breaker for them. Other than that, I got Luke Hughes, I think, playing in New Jersey. He showed some skill. Let's see if he can maintain that over a full 82-game season. And then a guy like Matthew Nyes in Toronto, if he gets a bump in playing time. Now, they did just fill out their top 6 in free agency pretty well, so we don't know if he's really going to be able to break out like most are expecting. But for me, I got Logan Cooley or Fantilli as my front runners, not named Bedard, because they're just going to be elite next level players. Fantilli's going to be playing with really good guys in Columbus, and I think Cooley's going to be given every chance to shine in Arizona.
I really like one of your dark horse picks there, Riley. I mean, Brant Clark, he was up with LA for a little bit of time there, but, when the end of the season started coming around, he got sent back to the OHL with the Barrie Colts, and, they made a good, deep playoff run. They got bested by North Bay, unfortunately, but, just watching the highlights of Barrie's games, he was coming really head-on into the O-zone, just really taking control. They named him captain. This is a kid that has a lot of leadership and skill under his belt. Yeah, he's going to be a really good defenseman coming up in the league in the next few years. I really like Brant Clark's game. He plays it very hard. He definitely has the stick handling and the hockey IQ to definitely make some really snappy plays and just some very good offensive timing when it comes to dominating the other team.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Dallas. This is going to be more of a mainstay thing. I know we're going to have you on, lots over our next, many episodes. But that's pretty much it for episode 4 of Gameday Tarps. Thank you again for listening.